Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhaled frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Hot damn. Welcome back, everybody. It's 4:02 in the Pacific Time Zone, and time for Toker Talk Radio, where you are the voice of the marijuana nation. The phone lines are open at 971-533-7111. And we are back, baby, back from Clio, Michigan, where I have all sorts of tales to tell. I got a Skunkworks shirt. Skunkworks show coming to the network, our first show from Michigan.
Nice.
They were in the booth next to us. Tell you a little bit about it. This is recorded.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. Radical Russ Belville here with 420 Radio's coverage of the High Times Cannabis Cup in beautiful Clio, Michigan. And thank God someone said it before I did, so I didn't say Clio. Clio, Michigan. We're so glad to be here at the Auto City Speedway, where the Auto City Speedway is not liable for any injuries you may sustain due to flying debris on the track. So when you get out there to the medicated area, and if you get hit with any flying debris, it's on you. We got quite a setup out here. For the first time, I'm actually outdoors. It's so nice to see the sun and breathe the fresh air, or at least as fresh as it gets here in Michigan. It is pretty fresh. We had a little storm cloud come over us, dropped a few drops on us, didn't hurt any of us, especially those of us from the Pacific Northwest. The sun is back out, though, and they've just opened the doors. We're here in the nonprofit area. We got all sorts of great folks near us. The Skunkworks radio show is our neighbor to the right. We got Jeff Frazier, our neighbor to the left. He was the lawyer who, one of the lawyers involved in that Tulia, Texas case. We're going to talk to him later in the day and give you the details on that. Groundbreaking landmark case that went down in Texas, racial profiling at its worst, and we will talk to Jeff Frazier about that later on today. Also today at 4:30, I will be presenting right there. I can't believe it. My booth is literally a hop, skip, and a jump away from the presentation area. I'll be presenting Marijuana and Your Civil Rights, how the war on drugs affects all 10 of the Bill of Rights, plus a few others in the Constitution. So we'll talk about that, learn a little bit about your constitutional rights, and why being a marijuana legalization activist is one of the most patriotic things you can do in America today. I'm live here from Portland, Oregon. My first time in Michigan, my first event in Michigan. Really happy to be here. Portland, Oregon, a beautiful place. We just got marijuana legalization on the ballot in the state of Oregon. We will be legalizing a half pound of marijuana. That's right. In the state of Oregon, it will be legal to have a half pound of marijuana at your house, 4 flowering plants, a pound of edibles, and a 6-pack of liquid extracts, or liquid, tinctures, basically. And as far as the BHO, the solvented extracts, you'll be able to purchase and possess up to 1 ounce of butane hash oil in the state of Oregon. That's New Approach Oregon. You can learn more about them at newapproachoregon.com. And even though we're in Michigan, the fight for marijuana legalization is nationwide. If you want to help support marijuana legalization in Oregon, that can only help all the rest of the states. The more legal states we've got, the better this turns out for everyone. Plus, our marijuana legalization not only legalizes that 1 ounce away from home, half pound at home, pound of edibles and 6-pack of tinctures, it also makes double those amount decriminalized. Merely a Class B infraction, a ticket for having up to a pound of weed in your home, 2 pounds of edibles, and a gallon of tinctures. Furthermore, up to 4 times those amounts will be just Class B misdemeanors, no longer felonies. You'll have to have over 4 times the legal amount of marijuana in Oregon before you'll hit felony status. Learn more about it at newapproachoregon.com. I'm Radical Russ with the 420 Radio booth. We will be playing music all day. We got free candy, free beer nuts. We've also got some stuff for sale here. If you need a lighter leash, if you're like me, you got a lighter, and sometimes you lose it. But with the lighter leash, you can't possibly lose your lighter. Lighter leashes are just $5. They help support 420 Radio, and they help keep our live stream free and open for everyone. We've also got marijuana legalization posters, 13 quotes from U.S. presidents about marijuana on a very patriotic red, white, and blue poster. We also have for sale the Russ Belville Show pins. Get the Russ Belville Show collector's pin, add it to your collection. Back to the music. I'm Radical Russ. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Jive, marry, grifo, grass, hay. Technically, it's cannabis sativa. The common name, marijuana. She has found a crutch to see her through her difficulties instead of facing up to them and coping with them. And in time, she may be ready to try something different, something better.
Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
420 Radio, the activist radio station.
Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz thinks it's okay for medical marijuana patients to go to federal prison. On May 30th, she voted against an amendment that would respect Florida's new laws and protect Florida's patients. Even though 88% of Florida voters support medical marijuana, why would Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz vote to send patients like this to prison? Is Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz out of touch with Florida?
Hemp Radio, replaying Wednesdays at 10 Pacific on.
I don't use marijuana, but as a teacher of 36 years, I can tell you lots of other people use it. I don't believe in prohibition. I don't think it works. Prohibiting it hasn't stopped anybody from getting a hold of it. I would like to see it regulated so that maybe kids can't get a hold of it so easily. I know they get a hold of it now very easily. I support a new approach to marijuana. I support legalizing it. It's with us. It's not going to go away. And if we can get money through the taxation, we can also educate our kids about it. That's why I support it.
We return with more coverage here of the High Times Cannabis Cup in Clio, Michigan, and joining us at the desk, he's the infamous Bobby Black. How you doing, Bobby?
What's up, Russ? How you been?
I've been great. What a great location this is. Setting up at an auto speedway. Has that presented any logistical challenges you weren't expecting?
Quite the opposite, actually. The big open space of the racetrack provided a really just enabled us to do pretty much whatever we wanted as far as like breaking down the booths and how it was going to be set up. And I got to say, the people who run the racetrack, the management here, have been unbelievable. I mean, not only welcoming, but just like bending over backwards to help us and make this event great. They're super thrilled with everything, and it seems like everybody's real happy with the turnout and with the way things have gone. The concert last night, wow, man.
Yeah.
I was never considered myself a Wyclef Jean fan. I wasn't even too familiar with his music, but he made a fan last night. I really, really enjoyed his show.
Fantastic. Wyclef Jean show right here at the Cannabis Cup in Clio last night. It's Sunday today, and we're still seeing more and more people coming out here. What I really like about the setup is there's a lot of room to move about. You know, some of these other cups we've done where it's shoulder to shoulder trying to get from place to place, a lot of room to move about and a lot of good vendors out there.
Yeah, absolutely. We came into this knowing this event was going to be a little bit smaller in scope and scale than some of the other ones, but like you said, that actually kind of worked out, I think, to our benefit in some ways, as far as the leg room of people being able to move around and get around without being crowded. and it's a little bit more intimate, and it made the concert a little better too. I think just not being so clustered and so confined. Again, I can't say enough about, and the town and the venue have just been, everything's been fantastic.
Yeah, plenty of parking, plenty of area to get around here. And is this the second one we've done in Michigan?
Second in Michigan. We did Detroit, I think 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, and so now coming back to Michigan, I don't know if the whole lot has changed legal-wise as far as setting this up and doing it. But what about the prospects of coming back? Is this something we'll keep doing on an annual basis?
I don't know. We have to talk about that, I think, at our wrap-up meeting after when we get back. But I think that if we had to come back to Clio, I think we would be pretty happy with that option. It's been really great. Certainly better than Detroit, where the police came and told us we weren't allowed to have a medicating area, even though we were following every single rule to the letter that they had laid out for us. So,
Yeah, it seems to be going out a lot better here. And I was talking with someone the other day and kind of expressed the idea that you come out to an area like this and perhaps the economic impact is seen more starkly. The local hotels and businesses around here go, oh, well, wait a minute, this is a good idea, something we want to support and something we don't want to have our law enforcement clamping down on.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. I think that they're appreciative of all the business that we're bringing in and the attention that we're bringing to the area. And, I was expecting to come here seeing some, rundown, rinky-dink kind of place. I mean, not to sound like a jerk, but it's not. I mean, this is a beautiful little town.
Yeah.
Flint and Clio are beautiful. The landscape's beautiful. The people are really nice, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised by everything here. And, it's amazing what difference going from, one county to another can make, out here, because like you said, we said Detroit was real strict with us, and I hear that some of the districts around here are very Christian and conservative. But this, I think it's called Genesee County, if I'm not mistaken. Apparently, these guys love their weed. This is a very open and friendly county towards marijuana, and I think we found the right place.
And I think also we're finding a real excitement about the growth industry that is cannabis in America. Flint and Michigan, a lot of the steel industry and the auto industry have been hit hard economically, and they see in this. I mean, you look around and look at the entrepreneurship and all the opportunity that's happening here.
Yeah, and I'm just mind-boggled by the rate of change that's going on regarding marijuana in the country. I mean, yesterday while we were here partying and hanging out, the New York Times came out for legalization, and I'm like, what? And then this morning I wake up and Meet the Press is talking about marijuana legalization, and wow, this is happening. We are winning.
We're winning the war on drugs. That's right. You're losing to those of us who are using the drugs. It's amazing. We're sitting here with Bobby Black, senior editor at High Times Magazine, and of course, also latest development happening with High Times in the media world, the Reefer Radio that's on Sirius XM, going into the second episode. Tell folks about that.
Yeah, that's real exciting. I don't know if people have had Sirius for a while. Those of you who have it. I used to do a show on Sirius back from 2004 to 2008 called Contact High, a stoner rock, stoner metal show on the metal channel, Heart Attack. And, when they merged with XM, they did a lot of downsizing and reshuffling. And
that was me. I got downsized.
I got downsized, as you did. Yeah, we both got fired. And there was one particular vice president there that wasn't too crazy about weed, and I think he used that as an excuse to, send me out the door. But it's nice to see that we have our foot back in the door at Sirius, because I loved working there, and we had a good relationship with them. And the fact that we have a new High Times show is fantastic, and we're hoping that if it's popular, we'll be able to get our own channel at some point. And I'm sure we would be happy to have you do a show on the High Times channel.
It's long overdue, man. When the Sirius XM thing happened, and I got canned on my birthday. Oh. It was my birthday, man. And when that happened, as I was working for Normal, that's the thing I had approached him, and I think I ran into that same VP roadblock, same guy.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't happening. I said, you just wait. It's going to happen. You'll see it's going to happen. And soon enough, before 2016 will definitely be happening,
yeah,
I'm sure.
So what's happening is the show airs on Saturdays, I believe at 10. I don't know if it's 10 or 11. This is so new, I don't even have all the details. It's either 10 or 11 on Saturdays. And it's hosted by Jen Bernstein, who hosts her Music Stash show on the High Times website. And it's just like a general interest pot show, news and entertainment and stuff. And I actually recorded a segment with them, which I believe will be airing next week, where I just do like a little flashback, tell a story from to celebrate as part of our 40th anniversary. We're doing little flashback stories and stuff. And I'm hoping that if all goes well and we end up getting a channel, I might be able to bring my show back. Contact High may come back like a phoenix, rise from the ashes.
That would be amazing. We'd love to have that again. Our buddy Herb Thrasher doing the Flower Hour, you were a major inspiration for that. He said there's got to be, stoner metal, stoner rock. That's such a big demographic of our people out there that we can reach out to.
Yeah, I've been able to make a great relationship with Herb Thrasher out there. He's been a fan, and that's been makes me feel good to know that that what I'm doing has a real audience out there, and there are people that appreciate it, and that it's just fantastic. And actually, I'm going to probably be on his show. I'm coming up to Oregon.
Oh yeah,
in just a few weeks. So
there we go.
I'm going to be probably live in the studio.
Excellent.
Up there. So.
Oh, we will get that definitely taken care of, and see if we can get you a look at one of our 24-hour dispensaries.
That would be cool.
That's one of the joys of before coming out here was oh wait, I need weed. That's 11. That's all right. It doesn't matter. And that we could bring that all across the country and around the world. Of course, as usual, in addition to the Reefer Radio, there's High Times Magazine itself. The magazine's still going strong. 40-year anniversary celebration. I imagine you've got some big offering, a 40-year retrospective or something in the works?
We're actually working on it right now. It's our November issue is our 40th anniversary official collector's issue.
Wow.
It's oversized. It's bigger. It's not. We took out a lot of the little smaller columns that are normally in the magazine to make room for like bigger historical features and stories. And in my column. I've been doing my column for 10 years now, and I've been at High Times for 20 years now. September's my 20th anniversary.
Wow, congrats.
At the magazine. So I did a slightly larger version of my column as well, just taking a look back over the last 20 years at High Times and some of the crazy stuff that I've gotten to experience and people I've got to meet, and it's been a blast, man. I can't lie.
Is there any is at the particular top of the list for you?
As far as
most shocking, most amazing.
Obviously meeting and smoking with like Snoop Dogg and Ozzy Osbourne,
sure.
and interviewing Robbie Krieger of the Doors. Those kind of moments are just incredible moments that most people don't have access to. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to work for the world's most notorious magazine, which has given me the opportunity to do those things. And other than that, there's all kinds of crazy. I've been to 34 Cannabis Cups. More than any other staff member, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Including Steve Hager, who is the founder, because
sure.
He hasn't been to any in a while. And, I met my wife at the Cannabis Cup.
Right.
Just in a wealth of incredible experiences, and people can read all about it in my column in the November issue. And along with that, I'm going to be putting that same retrospective online on our website. With all the past videos and the full interviews and full stories related to all those things that I touch on in the column. So keep an eye out for that in the coming month or two. It's gonna be fantastic.
40th anniversary issue of High Times Magazine. Look for it on newsstands. The November issue coming out extra thick. It's a fatty.
Yeah, it's a fatty. It's going to be coming out mid-September. It's going to be awesome.
Right on. Bobby Black, thank you so much for stopping by the booth here and giving us the latest on what's happening with High Times Magazine, hightimes.com. And I guess I got some catching up to do. I've done all the U.S. Cups except the Detroit one.
Oh, okay.
So I still haven't made it to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
That's a flight from Portland.
I can't believe you haven't made it to Amsterdam
I know.
yet.
I got the passport and everything.
Well, we got to get you over there, man.
All right, let's see what we can do.
All right, thank you so much, Russ.
Thanks,
always a pleasure.
All right. Back to some music and more interviews later on with our coverage here at the High Times Cannabis Cup. Enjoy. Yeah, you don't get much cooler than Bobby Black from High Times, and really appreciate his shout out to Herb Thrasher and everybody out there that listens to Bobby Black remembers his show from Sirius XM. And for High Times to get a foot back in the door at Sirius XM is very exciting to me. That's the kind of rising tide that could lift all ships, if you know what I mean. So check out Reefer Radio. If you're a Sirius XM subscriber, find the listings of when Reefer Radio is on and tune into that, because that's how they build, they're not Nielsen's, they're satellite. They can tell when you're tuning in, right? Tune in and have that playing so we can build the audience for that, give Jen and Mike all the support we can, get
the foot in the door because they recognize there's money to be made here in marijuana, and wait till these legal marijuana businesses want to start advertising. Hey, it's 4:20 here on the Pacific side of the continent. Hanging out with Bacon Dan. What is that we're enjoying?
This is Blueberry Perk.
All right, back
fantastic.
to Blueberry Perk. We're coming back with my amendments presentation next. Stay tuned. 420 Radio, the home of marijuana experts.
Join us for the International Cannabis Business Conference September 13th and 14th in the Portland Ballroom at the Oregon Convention Center. The International Cannabis Business Conference will focus on the emerging cannabis industry in Oregon, the United States, and around the world, putting you in front of the industry's foremost entrepreneurs, political leaders, and attorneys. Also showcasing over 40 cannabis-related industry exhibitors, offering VIP lunches and free nightly networking events. Prepare yourself for America's next great industry.
Are you a hypocrite? If you live a closeted cannabis lifestyle, you are. Read about 7 people living a closeted cannabis lifestyle who are on the verge of coming out in The Hypocrites by Mara K. Eaton. Available at areyouahypocrite.net. You can purchase the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, also available on iTunes. Check out Mara K. Eaton on Facebook as well. Learn more at areyouahypocrite.net. At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show.
Well, good afternoon, Tokers and Tokens, and non-token lovers of liberty. My name is Russ Belville. I'm from the Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We're a 24-hour marijuana legalization talk radio network. We always have something on, 24 shows from around America, 2 from Canada, and 1 from Europe. So we are covering it coast to coast and across the country and across the world. Danny Danko's Free Media, he was just here doing a recording of that podcast. We rebroadcast that every Wednesday, so plenty to find. On your smartphone, we're on the TuneIn radio app. So if you get TuneIn Radio, you can find 420 Radio. My presentation today is entitled, Re-Legalize Marijuana in the United States. It's our patriotic duty. And for sitting here in a nice hot place, at the end of this, you get a free poster with 13 quotes from U.S. presidents about marijuana. And the reason I came up with this presentation is having worked now for 10 years in marijuana legalization and activism and research and writing, I found I speak to so many people around the country that are working in this area, whether it's medical marijuana or industrial hemp or recreational legalization, and oftentimes they run into this roadblock with the public where they're not taken serious, where it's, oh, you guys just want to get high. Well, no, yeah, sure, maybe, but we're getting high already. If it's just about getting high, I'll go home. I'll get out of the hot sun. Go smoke a joint. No, this is about our civil rights. This is about civil liberties in this country, and that's what this presentation is primarily about. Now, when we talk about civil rights, a lot of people point back to the civil rights era, 1964 Civil Rights Act, and we remember that as a racial issue. Dr. Martin Luther King and the marches and Rosa Parks and so on. Or we think about it as a women's rights issue as it came later on in the 70s. It was more about women's rights. Then we moved into the 80s, 90s, and beyond now, gay marriage is a big issue. So it was about gay rights. So when I think about the fact that we're fighting for all of those groups, I think, oh, wait a minute, women's rights, that's about pregnancy and personal choice and birth control. So doesn't that mean we have a right to our own bodies? Isn't that the premise there? We have a right to our own bodies. And we can't discriminate against people because of their ethnic background or their national origin. Oh, so people that share a common culture and background shouldn't be discriminated against just because of that? That describes my people, pot smokers. And religious beliefs. Oh, we can't discriminate against people for their religious beliefs, so we can't discriminate against people based on how they believe and how they worship. Tell that to my Rasta friends. So a civil rights issue. It's my body, and I'm going to do with it what I choose, so long as I'm harming no one else. They seem to think they're banning a harmful plant. I think they're oppressing a harmless people. This is just another form of oppression. There's no reason for it to get laughed out of the room. This is a serious issue. Our whole country was founded on marijuana. All of our founding fathers were hemp farmers. Hemp was being grown for 150 years by the time the Declaration of Independence got written. And I think those men who founded the country and paid their taxes in hemp would have thought growing hemp is a civil right. I mean, if you could get in a time machine and tell Thomas Jefferson that we ban hemp farming, I think he'd freak out. He'd like, well, first he'd freak out on the time machine, but then he'd freak out because what? Ban hemp? How could that be? Marijuana prohibition, by its nature, subverts our natural and our constitutional rights more than any other issue since slavery. And I'm going to show you how. Let's go to our Bill of Rights, written by our founding fathers, ratified in 1789. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution are the foundation of what it means to be in America. And in that first amendment, there are 5 separate rights that are enumerated. One here is that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, unless you're a Rastafarian or a Coptic Christian or the THC ministry. Now this is an interesting thing. We have this decision that's called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and it ruled that Native Americans could use peyote, and it ruled that Brazilian Indians could use ayahuasca, a very powerful hallucinogen. Both of those are Schedule I drugs, just like marijuana. They have the religious right to use them. Rastafarians came along and said, well, hey, we have a Schedule I drug, cannabis, it's our religion, can we use it? And the court said no. And the reason why this is absolutely true, because weed is too popular. See, when it comes to peyote or ayahuasca, it's really easy to tell who's going to use that. Oh, it's a Native American or an Indian, and they're only going to use it, in a rare ceremony or two. But if we let the Rastas use weed, suddenly everybody's a Rasta now. Everybody's going to be Rasta. So there's no way that we can let it be legal, because then we couldn't have illegal pot. So, the problem with Rastafarianism, your God's sacrament is too popular. I think that violates a civil right or two. Another part of the First Amendment says we can't abridge the freedom of speech or of the press. I'm from Portland, Oregon, just north of me, Vancouver, Washington. Right across the river, marijuana sales are legal. In Colorado and Denver, marijuana sales are legal, and yet they're restricted. Oftentimes, they try to restrict them more than pornography. They try to put the High Times magazine behind the counter with the Penthouse and the Playboy, and then High Times students said, hey, that's our First Amendment. Fortunately, that one came through our way. But still, advertisers in legal marijuana states are restricted in so many ways that advertisers for beer or pharmaceuticals are not. Another part of the First Amendment says we cannot violate the people's right peaceably to assemble. That is, gather up in groups in public. Unless they're smoking pot, where people can see them. In Denver, they tried to have these pot events. They said, no, you can't be seen in public view. Now, we can have a beer garden. That's okay. And we can have smoking areas for tobacco. That's okay. But if people saw people smoking pot, oh, the world would come with it. Another part of the First Amendment says we have the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. If the government's doing us wrong, we can write a petition and change the law, except in 24 United States, there is no initiative process. I'm from Oregon where they have the initiative. Michigan has the initiative, but 24 states don't have that. So that seems a little like a violation of the First Amendment. Another way the war on marijuana affects our civil rights. The Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed unless you have one of these. This is my Oregon medical marijuana card. Because I have this in my wallet, I do not have Second Amendment rights. According to the Gun Control Act of 1968, it is illegal to sell firearms or ammunition to anyone who is a known drug abuser. This card says to the federal government, I'm a known drug abuser. So if I go to Walmart and want to buy a shotgun and go hunt ducks, Not likely. But if I was, if they saw this in my wallet while I was pulling out my debit card, he couldn't sell it to me. That's a violation of my Second Amendment rights, and I have yet to hear from the NRA on this. I have written them numerous times saying, hey, you guys are all scared about a government list where they're going to come take your guns. I got one for you. It's called a medical marijuana registry. I'm a little angry about that one. I'm from Idaho. I'm a veteran too, so that's well. All right, so let's get to the Third Amendment. This is the one nobody remembers. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in-house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Doesn't come up much anymore. But back in the colonial days, the redcoats, the British, they would force homeowners to bunk up 4 or 5 soldiers. And actually, according to this amendment, if it was wartime, and supposedly we have this war on terror, right? Technically, they could force you to have a soldier in your house. If they passed a bill that said it was okay during war, they have the right to do that. Can you imagine bunking 4 or 5 soldiers? Well, I know some soldier friends of mine, I didn't bunk any time, but being forced to, you know what I mean? But this was part of colonial times of the government being in your house. They can't be in your house. And in the Griswold decision was the one they gave that recognized women's right to birth control. Justice Douglas used the Third Amendment to say there is this inherent right to privacy. We have this right to privacy in America. In my neck of the woods, West Coast, the Ninth Circuit Court, there is this case, the Pineda Morales case, where a young man was being profiled by cops because he was Latino, and he kept going back and forth to grocery stores. And they were staking out the grocery store, and they saw this one car with this Latino fellow driving it all the time. So they followed him back to his house, he parked his car up on his property in his driveway. The cops, without a warrant, placed a GPS tracking device on the car, tracked all his movements, and used that information at trial to convict him of get a warrant and then go, search his house. And he did have a grow. And they busted him. And then, so he sued him and he said, hey, you put a GPS on my car in my driveway. And the Ninth Circuit Court said, yeah, that's okay, they can do that. That's a little worse than having soldiers in my house, because at least soldiers sleep. GPS never sleeps, it tells you where you're going everywhere. They can build such a case on that. And so that's how our Third Amendment is subverted by the war on marijuana. Fourth Amendment, this one's easy. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, except if we smell weed on you, we can take your urine. We can take your pee. I always imagine getting that time machine and telling that to George Washington. George Washington, imagine when you get a job in my time, you have to give your employer a cup of pee. I don't think you'd understand it. And there was a case recently where the cops had a warrant to go to this apartment complex, and they had to go on the second floor to the back door. Cops go up, second floor, nothing happened, but they smell weed coming from that door. Now, they don't have a warrant for that door. They got a warrant for that door. So the cops go over to the door. Police, open up. And from behind the door, they hear people moving around. So the cops kicked down the door, and sure enough, they found a guy with some weed. And when this went to the court said, yeah, that was cool. Justice Scalia said, so long as they smell marijuana and the sound of furtive movements that could indicate evidence being destroyed, they can kick down the door without warrant. Now, I understand how that might work with cocaine. I can flush a kilo of cocaine. I don't think I can flush a kilo of weed. Especially them low-flow toilets. I don't think it's happening. So how much weed do they think the guy's going to destroy in the time it takes them to get a warrant? Is it even worth breaking down the guy's door? And then, of course, from Edward Snowden, we now know that they are tracking all our email, all our mobile data, taking these sexy photos and passing those around the NSA. I'm 46. I don't understand the young people today with the pics and the texts. Never do that. Another part of the Fourth Amendment says, no warrants shall issue but upon the supported by oath or affirmation by probable cause describing the persons to be seen and the places to be searched. The problem is their probable cause often is profiling and pretexting. where they see a young man with dreadlocks, or they see a hippie, or they see someone that they think might be a weed person. And then they'll find a probable cause. I was arrested in Utah on my way to the Denver Cannabis Cup. And the probable cause for getting us pulled over was our window tint was too dark. Because, you know, when the cars going by at 80 miles an hour on the freeway, because that's legal in Utah now, 80 miles an hour. Cars go by at 80 miles, you can detect the grade of window tint. Okay? They got a special cop school for that. And oftentimes when these warrants are given, the descriptions are wrong, and the service of the warrant is wrong. One thing that pisses me off is when you see a headline that will say, person shot or killed in a botched drug raid. There's nothing botched about it. Their whole standard operating procedure is to throw in flashbang grenades, shoot the pets, and scare the hell out of you to make you comply. This happens not just to the typical suspects you would think. This happened to the mayor of the city in Maryland. There was a case where a shipping company had this conspiracy to ship weed to the East Coast, and they messed up the address and ended up going up to the mayor's house. The cops kicked down the door, put the mayor and his mother-in-law in handcuffs, shot his 2 black labs in their back, one as it was retreating, and forced them to sit in the blood of their shot dogs in handcuffs. The mayor. So this happens, and this is how the war on drugs keeps subverting our civil rights, and that's why we are patriots for fighting for legalization. The Fifth Amendment. No person shall be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. This is the double jeopardy clause. What it means is if we take you to trial and we find you not guilty, we can't take you to trial again and try to find you guilty. You get your shot. If you're not guilty, you're free. Except in California, where there's this one prosecutor, and she set up this sting to catch these guys that had a dispensary thing going on. And so she had cops go get a legal recommendation from a California doctor and show their legal California ID to get their medicine. Doing everything by the book, but then she goes and throws these conspiracy charges and other charges to convict this guy. It goes to trial in his home county, and a jury of his peers, 12 people, find him not guilty. Off the hook, right? No. That prosecutor did the same exact sting using a different cop, so that technically it wasn't the same offense. Got a different cop with, again, with a legal recommendation and a legal ID to buy weed from that guy, but this time got the trial in a different district where there were a tougher jury, and he got 5 years. So that's how they subvert our double jeopardy right. Another part of the Fifth Amendment says, we shall not be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. You know I'm a crime honest. Your Honor, I take the Fifth. That's what they mean, take the Fifth. You can't compel me to testify against myself. But they can take your urine and make it testify against you. They can take your blood and make it testify against you. That's me testifying against myself. Another part of the Fifth Amendment says, we shall not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. I'll shorten it. Government can't just take your shit. Government can't just show up and take your shit unless they catch you with a joint. Then there's this thing called civil asset forfeiture. In civil asset forfeiture, they charge your property with a crime. They say, house at 123 Main Street, Chevy Camaro from 1980, and $250,000 in cash we found in your home safe. You are guilty of being drug proceeds. You were bought with drug money. They don't even have to charge you, the person, with any crime. So they can come take your money, your house, your car, because they found a roach in your ashtray, or they found a plant in your backyard or your closet. Take all your stuff. It's guilty until proven innocent. You have to go to court and prove your stuff was bought with your salary or was gifted to you or is your legal stuff that you didn't get from being a drug criminal. They passed these laws in the 1980s to go after the cocaine kingpins you saw in Miami Vice. Now they're using it against retired people and veterans to take their homes. That's how they deprive us of our Fifth Amendment right with marijuana prohibition. The Sixth Amendment says, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial. Roger Christie runs the THC ministry in Hawaii. He had been in jail for 3 years before they gave him a trial. So I guess speedy means in the astronomical sense. sense, right? In the geologic sense, I guess. We are to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation and to be confronted with the witnesses against him. When I was arrested in Utah, they ran a drug dog around the car that sniffed and alerted at the corner of the car. How do I confront that witness? Your Honor, could you make the witness speak English, please? I can't confront my witness, a drug dog that is testifying that I had weed on me. That seems like a Sixth Amendment violation. And the last part of the Sixth, we have the compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. This is the one where you get a public defender, you get a lawyer, and you can call witnesses. They can be subpoenaed. Problem is, when you go to court, federal court, you can't say medical marijuana. There's a case in Washington State right now where not only is medical legal, but recreational is legal. It's called the Kettle Falls 5, where a family of 5 medical marijuana patients are being prosecuted by the federal government, and they are not allowed to say medical, they're not allowed to say marijuana, they're not allowed to say what conditions they have, what surgeries they have, what pharmaceuticals they're using. So, like, the truth, some of the truth, and only the truth the court wants to hear, I guess. The Seventh Amendment. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right to trial by jury shall be preserved. This just means you can sue someone if they do you wrong. You can sue. But how do you sue your dealer or your grower? Your Honor, he shorted me on this nickel bag. I'm going to sue. You can't, because it's illegal. We have all sorts of tales of the three-finger lids. And okay, I'm dating myself on that one. Sorry. And no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in the court of the United States than other to the rules of common law. But again, that California prosecutor running the same sting over and over, it's technically not the same charge, but it does end up being the same crime. The Eighth Amendment. Excessive bail shall not be required. For my Utah arrest, it cost $5,000 for an ounce of marijuana less than 10 grams and a piece of heroin. $5,000. Hey, that wasn't the bail bondsman. But since I was from Oregon, the Utah bail bondsman wasn't going to bail us out, so we had to pay the whole thing right up front. Nor excessive fines shall be imposed. That's against the Eighth Amendment. No excessive fines. The fine for one seedling on the federal level is $250,000. The feds catch you with one seedling, $250,000. But that's not an excessive fine to Sir Richard Branson, I suppose. And finally, this is where we really know the Eighth Amendment. People know this one. Nor cruel or unusual punishments inflicted. No cruel or unusual punishment. Except when those medical marijuana patients go to trial and they can't say medical or marijuana, and then they're put in a cell and they die because they don't have their medical marijuana. They asphyxiate or they seize, the seizures, whatever. Putting any medical marijuana patient in prison is cruel and unusual. The Ninth Amendment. This is my favorite amendment, and not a lot of people know it. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. I'll translate. Dude, we couldn't write them all down. You got a lot of rights, but we couldn't sit and write them all down. You have the right to eat delicious dinner. You have the right to watch sunsets. You have the right to have sex with your spouse. You have the right to breathe air. They couldn't write them all down. So the Ninth Amendment says that you have the right. You have rights that aren't written down. And just because we didn't write them down doesn't mean you don't have them. So how could a bunch of hemp farmers not think that growing hemp was a natural right? They wouldn't think to write down, you have the right to plant seeds and sow crops. That's like writing down, you have the right to breathe air to them. That was their nature. That was their economy. They couldn't imagine anyone would ever ban hemp farming. Of course, they couldn't imagine Richard Nixon. So. And the 10th Amendment, the States' Rights Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to it by the states, or prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. This is the states' rights thing. This says if the Constitution doesn't say it's a federal thing, then it's a state thing. And nowhere in the Constitution does it give the federal government the right to regulate the practice of medicine, nor does it prohibit the states from regulating their medicine. So to me, medical marijuana is a states' rights issue, and good news, the Obama administration just affirmed that. There was this recent try by a Republican representative to try to subvert decriminalization in Washington, D.C. The people voted for decrim, the city council passed it, and this representative tried to put this amendment in a bill that said you can't spend any money to enforce decriminalization, which was actually dumb because it doesn't cost any money to let people alone for weed, but it does cost money to write a ticket. So if it went through, it actually legalized weed, but the Obama administration wrote this memo and it said, we oppose this move to subvert the state's right and free, or was it a home rule of Washington, D.C. residents to decide the marijuana issue. That's the first time in history the federal government has said, not medical, that any marijuana issue is a states' rights issue. That's good news. Now, these are our first 10 amendments. There are other civil rights contained within the next 17. I'll get to a few of them real quick for you. The 13th Amendment was the one passed after the Civil War that said, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall be permitted within the United States, the anti-slavery amendment. But it actually says slavery and involuntary servitude are okay if you're a criminal. If you're imprisoned, you can be a slave or an indentured servant. And right now we have corporations that are exploiting marijuana smokers to the tune of 17 cents an hour. That's what they get paid, 17 cents an hour. It costs $5 a minute to call their lawyer on the phone. And these are companies like Delta Airlines, Greyhound Bus, that are when you call to do reservations, sometimes you're talking to a federal prisoner, marijuana prisoner, if they're doing for 17 cents an hour. So if you're having a bad time, don't cuss them out or nothing, they're having a worse time than you. The 14th Amendment, that's the Equal Protection Amendment. That says that, one state can't discriminate when another state, we all got to treat each other equally state by state, except medical marijuana, right? Michigan's one of 6 states that does have reciprocity for other medical marijuana states, but most of them don't. I live in Oregon. I have an Oregon card that means nothing when I go to Washington. It means nothing when I go to California. In fact, most of my friends on the West Coast have a Washington recommendation, an Oregon card, and a California recommendation, just so they can travel all along the West Coast. The 15th Amendment, this is the one, the Voting Rights Amendment. This is often, back in the day, after we gave black people freedom or recognized that they are free, and they would go try to vote, and they'd have a poll tax, or they'd have something to try to discourage the black vote. Well, in Florida, 1 out of 5 voting-age black men cannot vote, is permanently unable to vote because of a felony. And in Florida, 21 grams of weed is a felony. That's 3/4 of an ounce. Now, had those black folks been able to vote in 2000, we could have had President Gore. So that's how much marijuana being illegal can actually affect things that you would never even think it affected. Illegal weed in Florida gave us President George W. Bush. Wow. 16th Amendment, income tax. This is the one that said the federal government can do an income tax. And right now, they're using IRS Code 280E to go after legal dispensaries. They're saying, oh, you're drug kingpins, so you can't deduct your employees and your lights and your utilities and your rent. Makes the effective tax rate on some of these dispensaries up to 80%. No business can survive with an 80% tax rate. So here's a way they use something you'd never think of, income tax. What would that have to do with weed? A lot. Income tax is how they brought down Al Capone, not prohibition. 19th Amendment, women's right to vote. 19th Amendment, the women got the right to vote. Except, of course, in felons can't vote in prison, nor in 19 states can people in jail for misdemeanors vote. The number of women in prison has increased 646% since 1980. So that's how we're taking women's right to vote. Because what happens in these drug conspiracies? Guy number one snitches on guy number two, and guy number two snitches on guy number three, and they all get reduced sentences. And when it comes to the girlfriend, she didn't know anybody. She's just a girlfriend. Oh, she took a call. Oh, you want to speak to Johnny? Okay, here's Johnny. She's now a federal conspirator. She doesn't know anybody. And that's how those women end up going to prison. They have no one to snitch on. Oh, one more. 21st Amendment. 21st Amendment was the one that repealed alcohol prohibition. The 18th Amendment set up alcohol prohibition. 13 years later, it was repealed. In large part due to women. In fact, 3 years before the repeal of alcohol prohibition, there was a famous quote from a senator from South Dakota who said, the chances of the repeal of alcohol prohibition are the same as tying a Washington monument to a hummingbird's tail and it flying to Mars. And 3 years later, it was repealed. 2 years before that, a woman named Pauline Sabin started the Women's Organization for National Prohibition Reform. Got women involved. Changed 2 years later. Women are the key to ending marijuana prohibition. In every poll you take, Gallup poll, Pew Research poll, any of them, you will find that women's support for marijuana legalization is 8 to 10 points lower than men's. 8 to 10 points lower. Now part of that's demographics. When you look at how many people there are that have ever smoked weed, it's 54% male, 46% female. When you look at people that regularly smoke weed, 2 out of 3 days a week, right? Every day, right? Multiple times a day. When you look at that demographic, it's 68% male, 32% female. There are 2 male tokers for every 1 female toker. So ladies, if you're looking for a fella, smoke more weed. We're waiting for it. Alright, so 21st Amendment repealed prohibition, and in it, it actually has the word intoxicating liquors. That's part of the text of the 21st Amendment. That we have this right to intoxicating liquors. Now to me, the fact that intoxicating is in there alone says that there is a federal recognition of our right to mess up our heads. So how could marijuana not fit in that right? So be proud of what you're doing here. Be proud of being here, because just by being here, we are all involved in a federal conspiracy. If the DEA showed up right now, technically, we could all be charged with a whole host of federal crimes. A whole lot of them. So just by being here, you are telling the federal government what you think of marijuana prohibition. So, and don't be ashamed. I know when I was doing this at first, I would tell people, they say, oh, so you're a marijuana guy? Well, I work with patients in Oregon for medical marijuana. I was so ashamed, right? I was ashamed of, no, I believe that everybody has a right to get high. If I have a right to a Marlboro, if I have a right to a martini, I have a right to marijuana. Seems simple to me. And that's what I'm proud to say right now, being a part of this legalization movement. Because what else can you think of that affects 16 out of the 27 amendments? Really hard to come up with another issue that is so wide in scope. And really, from a historical standpoint, our heritage has been stolen. What it means to be an American has been stolen from us. Our country was founded by hemp farmers who smoked weed and used hashish. In fact, on this poster, which each one of you for being here gets a copy of this poster, I have 13 quotes from 13 presidents within the stripes of the flag. And hyperlinks there at the bottom. You can look up on the internet if you want to read more about it. Proof that our country was founded by and continues to be run by marijuana smokers. Marijuana, the gateway drug to the White House. But it's our history. Hemp. And this is one of the things, I do these debates with prohibitionists, a guy named Kevin Sabet. And one of the things he likes to say, like I always say, well, look, if this prohibition is so great, if you want to make weed illegal, why don't you want to make alcohol and tobacco illegal? And they'll go, oh, well, that's different. Well, there's a culture with alcohol. There's a culture. That train's left the station. It's too late. There's an acceptance. There's a culture. 1611 was when the first hemp plantation was planted in the Jamestown colony. 1611, 402 years, 403 years this year, that we've had hemp in this country. That's culture. Medical marijuana. Now we can trace medical back to Emperor Shenang in China in 5000 BC. But you're going to talk American use of medical marijuana. Cannabis was just another herb that was used by many peoples. But we don't really have a very distinct record of it. What we do have record of is in 1850, there was a British researcher, British physician named Dr. O'Shaughnessy, who went to India and studied the people in India that were still using bhang, B-H-A-N-G, bhang. It's this milk cannabis kind of mixture. They used it as medicine. He brought that knowledge back to England, and from England it came back to the United States, and by 1850, cannabis was entered into the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, which is like the list of legal medicines in the United States. The U.S. Pharmacopoeia from 1850 to 1941. So for 91 years, medical marijuana existed as written by the federal government. It's medical, right there. 1850 to 1941. In fact, you can find these old bottles, these old tincture bottles from like the turn of the 20th century, where cannabis, opium, and alcohol were the three #1 ingredients in any drugs that were being used medicinally at that time. Of course, only one of those can kill you. Or two of those can kill you, one of them won't, and that's cannabis. So we have medical going back to 1850. And as far as recreational being popular, I have a show that I do every Monday night called the New Viper Hour, and I play tunes from 1900, 1910, 1920, all the way through the 50s. Guys like Louis Armstrong, Cab Calloway, Menesbro, Gene Krupa, musicians who toked and sung about it and wrote songs about it. We have popular culture in recreational going all the way back to 1920. So don't tell me that alcohol is cultural. Well, so is marijuana. The culture's smaller. That doesn't mean that we get the right to discriminate against it. And to wrap up, this is not a partisan issue. Typically, Democrats support it more than Republicans, but that's changing. Two recent bills that passed in the United States House of Representatives only passed when 50 or so Republicans jumped to the Democratic side and voted for them. They were states' rights to medical marijuana amendment. Can't spend any federal money to mess with the states that are doing medical marijuana. Only passed the House. Yes. That only passed the House because about 47 Republicans came over and voted for it. The most recent one were two amendments that had to do with banking. Because in Colorado and Washington, all these dispensaries are cash only. They can't get bank accounts, they can't get credit accounts, they can't get loans. Have you ever seen a Coleman cooler full of cash? I have. It's scary as hell. It's like Breaking Bad level stuff, like, whoa, that's a lot of cash. I've seen it when they're getting ready to take it to the banks. I've seen guys with stacks, just stacks of money, and Febreze. They got to Febreze their money because they have a bank account, and they have some name for their company that doesn't say 420 in it or something, right? They kind of on the slide. They have to Febreze their money. Or else they'll figure out what's weed money. But Republicans came over and voted for those amendments, about 49 of them. And I say this is a nonpartisan issue because it speaks to Democrats, right? It's all about civil rights and racial justice and saving the environment. But it speaks to Republicans too, because Republicans are supposed to be about states' rights and individual rights and personal responsibility and less government interference and wasteful government spending. Well, hell, what's the war on drugs? But wasteful government spending. Inefficient government service that didn't stop me from smoking weed. So it'll work for either party. Get behind it, be proud of being a marijuana legalizer, and talk to people about it. The #1 thing you can do as someone who supports this is to just talk to people about it. People actually want to talk about it, and they want to talk to someone who maybe knows a little bit about it. So you know more than them, you can help spread the word. Part of a stat that I'd like to close with is in Minnesota in 2007, they were trying to pass medical marijuana, and they did a poll, and they asked 2 questions. And the first question was, do you support medical marijuana?